In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? When I was 11, I went out to a friend's for the weekend. Her parents were divorced and her dad lived about an hour and a half away, which was where we were going that weekend. My grandpa was in the hospital but my mom didn't think it was an issue, so I went. We spent the day doing normal kids stuff, swimming, whatever, when I suddenly started feeling really scared and sick, so I called my mom. She told me everything was fine, to just stick it out and I was probably just nervous about being far from home. I tried, but I couldn't shake the feeling, so I asked my friend's mom, who was still around, to take me home. I made her drive past the hospital where my grandpa was, and then to my grandma's house. There were tons of cars in the driveway. My grandpa had passed away. I found out afterwards that he'd died only a couple of minutes before I called my mom. I knew. I had just felt it. It's the only time something like that has happened to me, and it still freaks me out even 15 years later. My house was haunted as a kid, probably still is. Doors would slam shut and reopen on their own. Lights turn off and on. Bunch of paranormal shit. We learned to live with it. Then my brother started having night terrors. We shared a room and at least 3 to 4 nights a week I'd wake up to him screaming, completely terrified. The worst was when I was on the top bunk, and I woke up to my brother screaming and shouting. He jumped up, grabbed my leg, and pulled me off my bed. I hit the ground hard, vision going fuzzy. He slammed me into the wall and started hitting me. During all of this he was screaming. "It's inside the room. Get it out. Get out. Get out" if him repeatedly. My brother moved out soon after and all night terrors ceased, but now I think I'm started to be affected by whatever caused him to be scared so much. This was about 15 years ago. My girlfriend at the time I asked if I wanted to stay over on the weekend as her parents were going away. On the Saturday evening we were sat in her front room watching TV. The family have 2 small dogs who were curled up in front of the fire half asleep. I have this strange feeling that behind the sofa in the doorway somebody was watching us. At the exact same time both dogs' ears pricked up and they turned their heads and looked over our shoulders towards this doorway. My girlfriend and I were both like, WTF are they looking at? A minute or so later from upstairs in her parents' bedroom, we hear the alarm clock going off. Now this is late at night, just after midnight. My girlfriend makes me go upstairs to check it out, so I hesitantly do so, and in her parents' bedroom I can see clearly that someone has been sat on the edge of the bed, and I go over and switch the alarm clock off. Feeling very creeped out I engaged my logical brain to try and understand why the alarm clock went off, and I can't explain it. You have to physically move a switch to put it into the on position, and even though her dad works shifts, there would never be a time set for 12:15 a.m. for the alarm to go off, and then somehow the switch was moved over. So yeah, something was up. Fortunately things settled down and we didn't hear anything else. The next day her parents are back and she tells her mum about the incident. Apparently her mum had a knowing smile. It turns out that weekend was the anniversary of my girlfriend's granddad passing, so her dad took her mum away for the weekend for a change of scenery. Her mum told her that her granddad passed at roughly 12:15 a.m. exactly 1 year ago. It was like that alarm clock went off, as his way of saying hello. It was very strange indeed, and that was my only experience of the paranormal, fortunately. I am beyond sleep deprived, so I will be back later to expand and answer questions. Here's a copy of one of the scariest things that has happened to me. This will likely get buried, and I'm sure it's not exactly what you were thinking anyways. When I was 10 to 12 I had a stalker. No one believed me, because he was a guy who worked at my school. He always went above and beyond to help out the teachers, and after school was a school bus attendant on my route. There were a ton of minor incidents. Showing up in my neighborhood, volunteering for recess shift, various teachers usually traded off, making some comments and trying to become friends with me. When I was 12, I changed schools. He escalated. He found out where I went to school, tried to pick me up, tried to get a job there. It all culminated in him running me down with his car. I got off lucky and survived. He was arrested from an eyewitness report. He had used his own car. Every day I am grateful he targeted me and not my younger sister, 4 years younger. This was back in 2006 during my junior year of high school. I was out by one of the many small lakes in Norwood, Massachusetts with my then girlfriend studying anatomy in the back seat of my car. We were parked at the edge of the lake, lights off but car running since it was the middle of winter. The lake in front of us was frozen solid and there was a soft snow falling. We had been parked for about 15 minutes when suddenly we hear this car shaking crack followed by the sound of gushing water. We both scrambled into the front seats to wipe clear the window. What we saw was a giant, gaping hole right in the middle of the lake, maybe 15 or 20 feet across. Water was pouring out of it, blackening the ice around it at an unreal speed. I remember one of us saying that there were no tracks leading into the hole from a car or something, which is what freaked us out even more. We tore out of there as fast as we could. The next day we stopped by to see the hole better in daylight, but there was absolutely no sign of it, just a perfectly uniform snow cover from shore to shore. We followed the news for the next few days to see if anything would be reported to explain what we saw, but nothing ever came up. I posted this a few years ago, but I volunteered as an EMT in a small village just outside NYC as a senior in high school and my first few years of college. This night we were on call for not only our town but the surrounding 2 villages, who were out of service. One of the villages isn't exactly the best neighborhood. Now, generally we always have a police officer on every scene we go to just because they can always get there faster. This time around, though, in this bordering village, there was a fire on the other side of town and some sort of crime investigation elsewhere. Basically PD resources were stretched thin. A call came in for a 25-year-old male with a facial wound at a private residence with instructions that the patient was in the backyard. We were dispatched and told that there was no PD available and no advanced life support, ALS, available. It was just me and my driver. Note, this is standard in most agencies. It just felt very unnerving for me. So we get on scene and it was an apartment building with open yard in the back that we could drive onto. My driver pulls onto the field and he sees the patient sitting in the shadows as though he was hiding. Something felt off and that feeling prompted me to hit the floodlights on the ambulance, illuminating most of the yard. The moment the lights came on, we saw 5 to 7 men with tire irons and baseball bats standing in what was once pitch blackness. My driver hit it in reverse and we got the hell out of there. I got on the radio and called for immediate assistance. Turns out those guys were planning on jumping us, stealing the narcotics from the ambulance, and taking the rig for a joyride. Poor planning really, because we don't carry narcotics on a basic life support ambulance. To this day I fear what would have happened if we had just walked up to the patient. TLDR, volunteered as an EMT, almost got jumped on a call one night. I woke up at night for a glass of water. I walked to the kitchen, and ran into my dad. He walked right past me to the front door. He didn't even acknowledge me being there. I asked him, "Where are you going?" He didn't say anything, just had a blank stare and walked out the door. I walked over and looked out the window peephole on the door. We had a small walkway that connected to our driveway. He was sitting on the walkway, hunched over, elbows on his knees, under a big tree that was in front of my bedroom, just staring into nothing. I walked into my mom's bedroom and asked her why my dad was outside. She turned over and said, "What do you mean? He's right here." There was my dad, laying by my mom's side in a deep sleep. Mine is currently happening. I live in an apartment complex that is all townhouses, so we all have our own door to the outside. About a month ago, I was home with my baby and niece and I heard the doorknob jiggle. Like someone was seeing if it was locked. I got up and looked out the peephole and window, but didn't see anything. Then about 2 weeks later, I heard the doorknob jiggle again and someone actually give it a little push. The deadbolt was locked, but you could see a very small crack where the door was very slightly jarred. Again, I got up, looked out the window, again, nothing. About a week ago someone knocked on the door. I thought it was my boyfriend, otherwise I wouldn't have answered. I answered the door holding my baby, and the man looked a little caught off guard. He asked if my husband was home. Who asks that? Of course I said yes because I was freaked out and home alone. He said, "I'm sorry, I see you're busy with the baby, I just needed a jump." I didn't even have a car outside. I'm pretty sure this is a guy that just moved in a little down the street. He also passed several cars on the walk to my apartment. Last Sunday night, again home with just my baby. I hear a key go into our lock. I looked at the clock because it was way too early for my mom to come home, the only other person with the key. I again got up and looked out the window but didn't see anyone. So, at this point I'm highly paranoid and don't know what to do. There's been no crime committed, so I can't call the police. But, I'm pretty sure someone is trying to get in my apartment and it's freaking me out.